Phil, as we look at all this, the president and his allies continue to push this debunked notion, right, that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election, not Russia. And Russia, just to remind people, right, so Russia spread disinformation, hacked into servers, tried to sow division, right, trying to equate that with an op-ed that an official may have written about something that then candidate Trump said about Ukraine. Not exactly the same thing. That being said, this conspiracy campaign seems to be gaining traction and followers. So how do you refute that when the facts aren't working?
That's the question, right? I don't know. I wish I did. I mean, part of our job as journalists is to say, here's what's actually happening. And when people simply say, no, I don't accept that, like Senator Kennedy, what do? I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I wish I did. I mean, I think it's important to reiterate, though.
We needed the magic answer from you. Come on.
I wish I'd be hosting my own show if I could do that. But I mean, the real issue here is the point that you raised at the outset. There's simply no evidence that Ukraine, as an institute, the body, the government of Ukraine, had any role in trying to interfere in 2016. There was these piecemeal contacts between Ukrainian officials and these other things. But there's no evidence in Russia. The evidence of Russia that was presented by Donald Trump there saying that Ukraine maybe had the server, which is just absolute nonsense. I mean, it's not even tangentially close to accurate. But this idea that Russia didn't, the only evidence we have is through this company that Trump says is tied to Ukraine is also ridiculous. Robert Mueller has this lengthy indictment of Russians for what they did, including messages from the Russians between, to one another that somehow they obtained from the Russians. I mean, it is all we can do at this point, as far as I'm concerned, is simply say what is being presented and endorsed by Donald Trump and his supporters is utterly nonsensical and inaccurate.
Yeah, the information is overwhelming that Russia was behind this, and that we need to focus on that and need to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think spreading this type of misinformation is not good, and it sends us in the wrong direction. And it further goes on to what Fiona Hill said last week. The more we go about dividing America and dividing politics, spreading misinformation, this is exactly what Russia wants.
Right.
So we need to stop spreading misinformation.
It's doing the bidding.
Exactly. And we need to make sure that it doesn't happen again. That's where the focus is.
So there are also a number of questions after a lawyer for Giuliani associate, Lev Parnas, told CNN that Parnas is actually willing to tell Congress that Devin Nunes, of course, on the Intelligence Committee, Republican ranking member, went to Vienna last year to meet with a former Ukrainian prosecutor to dig up dirt on the Bidens. Now, Nunes, of course, wouldn't talk to CNN about this, about the trip, did not deny it when asked about the reporting on Fox. Take a look at that moment.
Bottom line, were you in Vienna with Shokin?
Yeah, so look, Maria, I really want to answer all of these questions. And I promise you I absolutely will come back on the show and answer these questions. But because there is criminal activity here, we're working with the appropriate law enforcement agencies.
So, Ellie, he eventually told Breitbart that the CNN reporting was, in his words, demonstrably false. If this is true, though, how big a deal is this?
Devin Nunes needs to be really careful because let's all remember, it is a federal crime to solicit from a foreign national campaign assistance. Those three things. So if he sat down with a foreign national, that seems to be the case here if this reporting is true, and solicited, asked for an investigation of the Bidens, which it doesn't have to help your campaign, Devin Nunes. It can help someone else's campaign, too. If the intent here was to help Donald Trump's campaign, and if that's a thing of value, which is a little bit of a legal dispute, then that's a crime. So he's on very thin ice here and needs to be really careful.
And Keith, Jackie Spears actually saying she wants health ethics to look into this.
I think there should be an investigation. Devin Nunes was the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee for Republicans, and he's sitting up there conducting an investigation while never at any point disclosing his own entanglement with Ukraine, his involvement in digging up dirt, allegedly, on the Bidens. So he's a co-conspirator in the very investigation that he's supposedly investigating. This makes no sense. And it goes to show, Giuliani is now under investigation. His associates, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, have been indicted. All these Trump people who are associated with defending Trump have come under this cloud of scrutiny suddenly. But nobody is really scrutinizing Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, because they haven't been convicted of anything. They haven't been indicted for anything. There's no federal investigation of them, even from the Trump Justice Department. So why is the Trump Justice Department so curiously interested in investigating Giuliani and his associates, but not interested in investigating Hunter Biden and Joe Biden? It's because there's nothing to find there with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. But there's plenty of criminal evidence or potential criminal evidence with Giuliani and his associates.
I think we can all say definitively this is not the last that we've heard of this.
Navy Secretary Richard Spencer forced to resign for going outside the chain of command by proposing a secret agreement with the White House. Defense Secretary Mark Esper says he lost confidence in Spencer over the case of Eddie Gallagher, the Navy SEAL who posed with the corpse of an ISIS fighter. Gallagher had faced a court-martial for premeditated murder and attempted murder, but was acquitted of those charges. In a statement about Spencer, the Pentagon spokesman says Defense Secretary Esper lost trust and confidence in him for not disclosing White House conversations. Secretary Spencer had appeared to be seeking a way to resolve a standoff between the Pentagon and White House over Gallagher's case. Earlier this month, President Trump was advised by the Pentagon not to intervene in the case, but he pardoned 2 other service members and restored Gallagher's rank anyway.
The President of the United States is the Commander-in-Chief. He's involved in every aspect of government, and he can make decisions and do things and give orders as he deems appropriate.
Sir, has the President explained to you his rationale behind restoring Chief Gallagher's rank and maintaining his pin?
No, he doesn't have to.
A senior defense official tells CNN that Spencer had proposed allowing Gallagher's review to move forward, but with a secret guarantee with the White House that Gallagher would still keep his Navy SEAL status. But Spencer never alerted the Pentagon to these back-channel negotiations. Spencer highlighting his disagreement with President Trump in his resignation letter, writing, "I no longer share the same understanding with the Commander-in-Chief who appointed me in regards to the key principle of good order and discipline. I cannot in good conscience obey an order that I believe violates the sacred oath I took."
I believe he did the right thing. He should be proud. Good order, morale, and discipline in the armed services have to transcend politics.
An administration official telling CNN the defense secretary and chairman of the Joint Chiefs raised serious concerns with the White House after Trump tweeted support for Gallagher. Despite that, Secretary Esper now says Gallagher will keep his Navy SEAL Trident pin, his Navy SEAL status, out of fear that he would not receive a fair review by the military at this point.
This is all about ego and retaliation. They could have taken my Trident at any time they wanted. Now they're trying to take it after the president restored my rank.
But perhaps the real question this morning, the real bottom line is, even though the president had the authority to intervene in these 4 cases involving war crimes allegations, the fact that he did intervene, many people at the Pentagon say, impacted good order and discipline inside the ranks.
If only Democrats vote to impeach the President Trump, and Republicans, and maybe a couple Democrats, do not vote to impeach him, vote against that, doesn't that suggest that this is a partisan impeachment? Wouldn't that hurt the credibility of the impeachment that only Democrats vote to support it?
I think what it will mean if we decide that we cannot accept this kind of conduct in the President of the United States, and the Republicans decide that because of the president's party, or because they're afraid of a primary, or for whatever reason, they cannot vote to support impeachment, I think it'll mean a failure by the GOP to put the country above their party. And it will have very long-term consequences if that's where we end up. And if not today, I think Republican members in the future, to their children and their grandchildren, will have to explain why they did nothing in the face of this deeply unethical man who did such damage to the country.
President Nixon resigned rather than be impeached. He was never actually impeached by the House. It was going through the process, and he resigned before it could happen. Do you think President Trump should resign?
Well, I certainly think that he's committed the most grievous misconduct. I have no illusions about Donald Trump doing what's right for the country or what's best for the country. That's never been where he's coming from. What my Republican colleagues, I think, need to decide and to search their own conscience about is, why was it that in the past Republicans were willing to put country first? Why were there people like Howard Baker then but not now? I would hope that there will be Republicans who will be willing to step forward and say, whatever the political consequences, if this was Barack Obama had done this, they would have voted to impeach him in a heartbeat with a fraction of the evidence. It shouldn't matter this is a Republican president. I hope to hell, Jake, if this had been a Democratic president, I would be among those leading the way and saying we need to seriously consider impeaching this president.